Hey there, welcome to Carbohydrates Notes. Today we are talking about carbohydrates, the first of our three macromolecules. So remember that when we're talking about macromolecules, the three macromolecules of life, we're talking about carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So today we're talking about the first one, carbohydrates. And so carbohydrates, remember, are food, and so therefore they contain both energy and nutrients. The nutrients, or the elements that they contain, are carbon, which can be found right here on the periodic table, hydrogen, which can be found right here on the periodic table, and oxygen, which is right here. And so we see this is a glucose molecule, a single sugar molecule. And so we can see that there are carbons, there are hydrogens, and there are oxygens, and they are all bonded together. And we know that the energy in this molecule is here in the bonds, and that when we eat this carbohydrate molecule, we break down these bonds and we get the energy. And then our body takes on these nutrients. And that's what we're made of, these nutrients. So the monomer of a carbohydrate is sugar. And so we are going to talk about three types of sugar, or just discuss really quickly three types of sugar. And the big one that we're going to talk about all year long is glucose. Glucose is very important. It is a product of photosynthesis. It's something that your body uses. We're going to talk about it a lot. So know that glucose is a monomer of a carbohydrate. It is a sugar. This is important. You're going to hear about this a lot. We also have sucrose, which is a different type of sugar. That's table sugar, the kind that you sprinkle on your Rice Krispies. And lactose is a different kind of sugar. It's the kind of sugar that we find in milk. So there are different types of sugars, and they all end in ose. If you hear something like ose that ends in ose, it's probably a sugar. There are more sugars. There are fructose, there's galactose and maltose, but we're just going to quickly talk about these three. And so the function of sugar is quick energy. And so let's talk about why it's quick energy. Notice that it's a pretty small molecule. There are not a lot of bonds. So here, if sugars give you quick energy because it's a small molecule with not a lot of bonds. If we look at this graph, we can see the blood glucose, or the amount of sugar in your body, or the amount of energy in your body over time. The energy that you get from sugar is going to rise really quickly and then drop really quickly. It's a small molecule, so you're going to break those bonds really, really quickly, and then you're going to be out of bonds, and so you're going to run out of energy very quickly. And so this red line are the complex carbohydrates, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But do know that sugar is going to give you quick energy. You're going to burn through those bonds very quickly. The polymer of a carbohydrate is a complex carbohydrate. That makes sense. So the word complex means more pieces. And so a complex carbohydrate has more pieces. Poly means many. Polymer. So our examples of complex carbohydrates is starch and fiber. Starch stores energy and can give you long-term energy. So let's talk about why that is. It has many monomers. So here is many monomers all linked together like a chain. And so it has more energy because there's more bonds. And so therefore, if you eat something like that has starch, it's going to give you more energy over a longer period of time. So starch is a way that plants store energy, and it's a way that we get lots of energy. Fiber is another example of a complex carbohydrate, and it's pretty different from starch. It's what plant cell walls are made of. So it gives plants structure. We use our skeletons to give us structure, but plants use these fiber. Another word that you'll hear is cellulose. But cellulose, or fiber, is a very tough molecule, and it's going to be your plant cell walls. But we'll talk more about that later. So complex carbohydrates can store long-term energy and provide long-term energy because they are large molecules with many of bonds. So here, let's look at our graph again. We know that sugar, you're going to break those bonds really quickly, and then they're going to run out of energy, and you are left with less energy. With your complex carbohydrates in the red, you have longer, more steady release of energy. So at the end of 100 minutes, you have more energy than you do with sugar. It's a more steady release. And that's because it's a larger molecule with more bonds. And so it'll give you energy for longer. So let's talk about the starch molecule. What is it? Well, it is something that plants make. An example of this, we're going to talk about two examples, potatoes and rice. So potato plants collect light energy through the process of photosynthesis, but you already know this. So through photosynthesis, here's a plant right here. It's going to collect light energy from the sun. And it's going to, through the process of photosynthesis, capture light energy and store it in the bonds of glucose. There's that important sugar that we were talking about. It's going to store it in the bonds of glucose. And so during the process of photosynthesis, light energy is stored as glucose. And then the plant needs to store that energy for a long time, for the long winter, so that the bonds of glucose are going to bond together. The glucose molecules are going to bond together, and they're going to form a complex carbohydrate. They're going to take this glucose, bond it to this glucose, and then this one, and this one, and this one. And so what you have is a string of glucose molecules bonded together called starch. And that plant is going to hang on to that starch for the long winter. It's going to give that long-term energy to the plant over the winter. So that's how we get starch in potatoes. So when we eat potatoes, you probably have heard somebody say that potatoes are starchy. That's because the potato plant makes it, and then it stores it in this tuber. And a tuber is a potato. And so that's the function of the potato, is to store that starch. Let's look at another example of where we get starch. Another type of food that has starch is pasta. Let's stick with me here. So pasta is made of flour. Flour is the white powder that we cook with, that we make bread. So flour is ground up grains, like wheat and rice. So we take, this is wheat and this is rice, and we grind it up. We dry it out and grind it up, and that's how we get flour. So grains like wheat and rice, are seeds. So those seeds are going to drop to the ground and grow a new plant. And so why do we find starch? Why would a plant put starch into a seed? Why is it going to give its energy to a seed if it's going to drop to the ground? Well, what happens is it gives that seed a fighting chance. It allows for the offspring to grow. So the more energy the plant can give each seed, when it drops to the ground, it will be more likely to survive. And so we take these seeds, we grind them up. They're filled with starch because the plant wants the seeds to survive. But we take them, we grind them up, we turn them into flour, and then we make pasta out of it. And so therefore, our pasta has starch in it. And therefore, we think of anything that's made with flour, breads, pastas, anything like that, is going to be starchy, is going to have lots of carbohydrates. So we're talking about starch. Let's talk about our other carbohydrate. We said that, I put cellulose. Let me change this to fiber. Fiber, also known as cellulose. Fiber is a different type of complex carbohydrate, and it's used in cell walls. And so celery is a plant, and so those strings that you can pull off of celery, that's fiber, that's cellulose. And those are a complex carbohydrate. And we can't break those down. Our body can't break down fiber because we don't have the right enzymes. And it's just a very tough molecule. And so anytime you're eating plants, you're eating fiber. And fiber is very important in our diet. It actually helps keep us regular. What does that mean? It means it helps us to go to the bathroom more easily. If we need to go number two, it's going to, we can't break this down, and so your body tries to produce more digestive juices, and it moves it along because it's trying to break it down and it can't break it down, so it produces more digestive juices and it makes the food flow out of us more quickly. So if you eat a lot of fiber, it's going to make you have to go to the bathroom a lot. So animals that eat a high fiber diet have to work extra hard at getting the energy and nutrients out of the food because you can't break down that cellulose. So an example of this is that rabbits, they eat their food and then they eat it again. What does that mean? Yes, rabbits eat their poop. They eat their poop so that they can get another stab at that cellulose or that fiber. And so that way they can have a chance to break it down and get the energy and nutrients out of it. A cow has 4 stomachs. So what happens is it's a ruminant, which means it's going to eat that grass. It's going to hang out in this stomach for a while, and it's going to then sort of ruminate on it. It's going to cough it back up, and it's going to sit there and chew it again. Have you ever seen a cow sitting in a field just chewing? That's what it's doing. It's working on getting that cellulose broken down or that fiber broken down. So after it chews it again for a while, it goes into another stomach, and then it goes into another stomach, and then it comes out. And so therefore, it has spent a lot of time being digested or broken down into smaller pieces. One last thing I want you to remember is that while foods may contain lots of a molecule, like breads and pasta contain lots of carbohydrates, they also contain lipids and proteins. So here is a nutrition label for bread. So yes, there are lots of carbohydrates in this bread. It is a high carb food, but it also has some fat, and it's going to also have some protein. And so remember that our foods were plants, and plants they need proteins, they need carbohydrates, and they need fats. And so our food is going to have all sorts of different stuff in it. All right. Well, I hope this helped, and have a great day.